Hello, and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and The Fool.
Have you heard the latest news about the sun?
That turned into the Eye of Sauron?
Got a big hole in it?
Yeah. No, I saw that picture and I was like, my goodness, that looks like the Eye of Sauron's now staring at Earth.
So that's one of those, I think it is one of those coronal mass ejections that I've been worried about. But it missed. Because it's got...
a lot of space.
Well, it's got 360 degrees
Yeah.
in one direction and 360 degrees in the other direction to shoot. And Earth takes up a tiny portion of that.
Yeah.
But the odds are, given that it's more like shooting out a cone,
Yeah.
it's not... I saw someone talking about it where they're saying the sun is shooting out this wide spray. It's not shooting out a plasma cannon at like a single degree of its line of sight. So it does hit a massive area. And as the solar intensity of the sun increases, the sun actually polarizes such that the mass ejections only happen around its equator.
Yeah.
So it lowers it down to only 360 degrees, basically. It's not going to be shooting out the top or the bottom for the most part. And we happen to be orbiting around its equator, like everything else.
Yeah.
But
well, it's a good thing we dodged.
yeah, but it's only a matter of time. I actually didn't know. I watched this video. Anton Petrov, I think, is the channel. He does a lot of... These days, he does a lot of, I guess, science updates, basically.
Yeah.
Just talks about advances in astronomy and...
Astrology.
neurobiology and history and that sort of thing. Mostly astronomy. And he was talking about a bunch of Carrington-like events, which was the 1857 or whatever it was.
When the sky caught fire.
And telegraph lines caught fire and all that sort of thing. And he was talking about a bunch more that happened that I didn't know about because they were much more localized. So in 1986 or so, about 40 years ago, there was a solar flare in Quebec which wiped out its entire power grid and shut it down for a couple of days. There was another one that in New York which caused the trains to catch fire or something like that. Like it was this... It was like this,
well, they have those trams with
it was the subway tram line, I think,
Yeah.
caught fire, but nothing else did. And so there's a study done, not on the New York case, but just in general. And it's kind of good news. If Earth gets hit by one of these massive solar flares, it turns out that it's not an even effect in the slightest.
Yeah.
It's completely scattered around Earth. So it depends on a lot of factors, like where the main body of the effect hits, obviously. Yeah. But then just what the magnetic field, how it sends it flying off in random directions. And also the conductivity of your soil, of the land you're on. So they did...
Do they insulate electrical wires now as well?
Like, electrical lines are insulated, but not against that sort of thing, I don't think. But there are server backups that are within Faraday cages, and there are buildings which are secured with Faraday cages, because...
I feel like you would do that, like, base station, not like with actual electricity, those big things.
Yeah, so
those must be in cages. Like those.
A lot of them aren't. It's very cheap to...
I feel like you just put a aluminum mesh around them.
Yeah, no, it's very easy to do. It's just you need to convince someone to do it because it does cost money, right?
Yeah, but
like you're saying, I think the estimate to secure the United States is something like $100 billion. So it isn't cheap. It's not like super expensive, but it's not cheap. And
it's better than having a transformer catch fire.
Well, it is if it happens.
Yeah.
But if it never happens and you just sort of bank on that, then because you don't want to be the guy that built the cage and then nothing happens for 20 years. And maybe it's useful long after you're dead, but
it's better to have a wall and never have be used.
But there's infinite number of things you can defend against.
Yeah.
Democracy has this interesting problem where you have a 5 to 10 year legacy, basically, right?
Yeah.
So if you do something that's going to defend you for an event that's happens roughly every 60 to 75 years, you're not going to get the credit for it, and you're also going to be the guy that wasted a bunch of money and nothing happened.
And this is why the monarchy is needed.
Well, with a monarchy, then it's you are the proud family line that protected... Your ancestors had the foresight 100 years ago.
Yeah, with was it Ming that built the Great Wall, and then like another guy expanded it, and
Yeah.
another guy. So it's like, this is the wall that my grandfather made, and you will defend it.
Yeah, because but your failures and your successes are now passed down through your line.
Yeah.
And it gives you a more long-term view. I was thinking in comparison during
Well, we do have this sort of with Bush and Trudeau of they do get slightly affected by their father's legacy.
but I don't think we would
Hold them as responsible for things.
or we wouldn't I don't think Pierre Trudeau never knew his son was going to become prime minister, right? So
Yeah.
he's not going to be doing something so that his son can carry.
Yeah.
So maybe like Trump or Clinton, now that it's looking like they want their younger kids to get into
Yeah.
it, maybe they would be more like, I'll do
The-
this for my children. But
Dynasticizing of politics is starting within democracy.
yeah, well, I think it kind of has been for a while. Like if you look at
But it's becoming a lot more, I think.
if you look at like George Washington, his grand nephew was Robert E. Lee, I believe, and I think there's a lot of politicians related to Lincoln, and then the famous one, of course, is JFK. His
Yeah.
whole family is in politics, and all of them are high up there.
Yeah.
So, and like half of them were assassinated. So they do happen.
It takes a long time probably to build up the dynasty. Like just full-throated fling into it.
Yeah, and also it's never set in stone in a
Yeah.
democracy. You're never actually going to.
Well,
You shouldn't be banking on it with. I don't think the voters are going to be looking at like Trudeau did this, so his grandson will
but it's like,
be held accountable.
You got your let's say Viking clan, right? And like the leaders decided through duel of
Gift giving more apparently, but
fantasy Vikings.
okay.
Fantasy Scottish Vikings,
okay,
Germans, all of those put together. The barbarian.
yeah,
So we take the barbarian, and the dynasty is decided by duel. And then one guy basically says, my son will lead instead.
yeah,
And people attack his son for that. Because he dies, and then his son's like, I'm going to be leader, but my son's going to lead. And the son wins. And then that guy's like, my son's going to lead. And they're like, oh, okay, well, this is Odin's call. So maybe someone will challenge him that time, and that son wins. And then the fourth son comes along, and they're like, we're not going to even fight him. He's declared leader. And then the thought of even fighting him disappears, and then you have like 20 generations in. It's like, there's an old tradition of who can be leader. It is decided not just through blood, but through a duel. And then that like pops up, but it sort of becomes a dynasty.
and so you do stuff with the thought in mind that your ancestors will be judged for what you do now.
Yeah.
Maybe I was thinking.
I'm wondering if that process could happen to democracies that we have.
Well, I thought of a way you could do it where you have kind of what we have now, but not really. You have like
Like even with Obama to Biden, that's his VP. And they're different people, obviously. But it still feels like a continuation of that entity.
But you could have like 20 houses, right?
Yeah.
And each of them could have their own sort of dynasty. And you could elect from among those houses who you want. And that's
Like the elector counts.
yeah, the Holy Roman Empire sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the difference would be there's not elector counts. There's a democracy, so the people vote for the family.
Yeah.
And the elector counts, instead of being the voters, are the people that become leaders.
And then it gets all incestuous and weird within them, and they're all working each other's backs. But then there's the men for the north, and you vote for them, and they're defending the border from the ravaging hordes. And then when he becomes king, he has to leave from the border's defense, but he puts the kingdom to right. So giant cloud of sun dust.
Yeah, well, actually, I wanted to bring up the Roman consuls were during the time of the Republic.
Oh yeah, they had their whole. They like lasted for what, 2 years? And
1
so,
year.
1 year, and so a bunch of that whole the Punic Wars
Yeah, with
disaster.
oversimplified,
Yeah.
talked about that, how you do whatever you can to gain glory in a single year.
Yeah.
And so it's very short-term thinking in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so the longer you have... So it's a trade-off, though. So the longer you can have people in, the more future-focused they're going to be. But on the other hand, if you have a country like Germany or Canada where you can have unlimited terms, you might never get rid of the person.
Yeah.
And if you don't like the person, and like Canada or Germany, you've got like 5 major parties, you can have the majority of the country hate them for the entire 30 years they're in office or something.
Yeah.
Not that they're going to last 30 years, but 15 years they could very easily. Or not easily, but 15 years they could be in. And I think Merkel was. I do think Merkel was actually quite loved as well. But she could have been in if she wasn't.
Yeah.
And Trudeau isn't liked by the majority of Canadians. And he, basically you can't get him out because there's just enough people voting for him.
Yeah.
And then the people that don't like him but still feel a sort of socialist bent or a left-leaning bent, they vote for the NDP. And the NDP have, I don't know, sworn their soul to the Liberals for some reason.
To get the dental and drug program, which apparently is happening now.
But like they don't disagree with them on
Yeah.
anything. And it's kind of weird.
Yes.
It's like they're not a party, they're just free votes.
Well, here's the thing with Canada is basically, so you have this coalition, and
It's not even a coalition, it's like a...
well, here is basically, it's, I don't like how this works, which is they did this a bunch with the Conservatives as well 4 years ago when the whole like investigating Trudeau thing happened, which is if you get enough people saying, oh, we disagree with you, so you say, we don't agree with this policy proposing in Canada, you can go, oh, well, I'll interpret that as a vote of non-confidence, and we'll call a vote of non-confidence instead.
Yeah.
And then it's like, no, we don't want that. Like, the NDP doesn't want to vote of non-confidence because it has the potential to absolutely destroy any power they have. And so basically the Liberals can threaten the NDP with, if you disagree with us, it's a vote of non-confidence, and so we'll both be gone.
Sort of mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
That's, that makes me like it a bit more, because it's, at least there's a bit of like political maneuvering in there, a little bit of spine or something. But it is a bit weird that you don't have any parties making any choices.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the graph I looked at I think it was just a big flare in Norway. They showed that you could be like in different neighborhoods in the same town and have totally different effects from the flare. So if
someone gets superpowers, someone else has their toast pop early, someone else's TV explodes.
Yeah, so when basically we get hit by one, because I think what his video said was there's 3 big ones in the last 200 years, and then there's the minor ones like Quebec and New York, and so they're not uncommon events. And there's also...
So this is sort of like a mythological event of the sky turning to blood?
I don't think so. There's also this... It was in the 1800s as well. This was one of the other big ones, I think. It was near the end of the 1800s. There's a Japanese painting of the Northern Lights.
Yeah, that's why I mean, like, the sort of mythological event of weird ghost lights are up here, apparently, like, the sky just turned orange.
Well, you could probably ask someone from the north, like, what's that? Like, Japan goes very far north.
Yeah.
But it's a neat painting because it's the old Japanese style, that sort of rice paper thing or whatever it is. Except there's...
The traditional ink painting.
There's a bunch of Japanese samurai or peasants or something looking up at the sky, and they're just like, what's going on? And there's, like, green lights in the sky. Going to this. So when it happens, we're going to lose, probably, unless some major shielding is done, a lot of infrastructure. And a lot of servers, a lot of data.
Satellites?
Satellites, yeah, they could happen. Internet, that sort of thing. Now, a lot of stuff, I don't think it's actually known to what degree stuff is or isn't resilient. Like in the New York case, the telegraph wires didn't catch fire.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say what will be affected and what won't. Again, this like the soil conductivity and all sorts of random stuff. But because it will be sort of scattered around Earth, it probably won't wipe out everything, so we can rebuild from the points that survive. And there are people doing backups, and I believe during World War II, a lot of buildings were made to contain Faraday cages within them because of the risk of nukes. Yeah. So the Cold War, not more than World War II.
Shouldn't even like our rebar structure be slightly Faraday cagey of buildings?
Maybe. I don't... I guess the idea is you want to conduct stuff as fast as possible into the ground.
Yeah.
So you could hope. It might also channel it right into your computer if it goes by it or something. But
What would be cool is we get a bunch of satellites, right? And I mean, it travels at doesn't travel at the speed of light. It's slightly slower, isn't it? Like we see the ejection, and it's not actually the speed of light.
yeah, you can predict these things to some degree.
Yeah, so we know it's going to hit Earth, and so we have like a swarm of satellites, all with shields, and they just got like form of Voltron in front of it, and it shields the Earth.
I don't think we have nearly enough satellites.
That'd be so cool.
And we already have the magnetic field, so
Yeah.
like would the satellites also have a giant pole extending into the ground?
They have a giant asteroid made of like pure copper that's spinning around the Earth.
Right, but you still need to the charge needs to go somewhere, right?
Yeah, it's going into the asteroid made of pure copper.
Right.
And then we have this giant glowing copper asteroid orbiting the Earth.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what what a solar flare is made of. I don't know what energy.
Sun fart.
I don't know what properties it has or what it would do.
Look, my main question is, will Maze Runner happen?
I mean, it kind of did, right? Like if the solar flare had happened a little bit earlier, because the big twist in Maze Runner is that the sun wasn't responsible for the disease in the slightest.
No.
It was a convenient excuse for something
lab.
they did on purpose, or it got out because of the solar flare?
It got out because of it. The solar flare was so bad, it actually burned the world. Like the what was it? The equator got incinerated.
Now, I haven't read the books in a long time, but I remember seeing a clip from the last movie while watching Ryan George, and Earth doesn't look burned at all. So I wonder when they come out, it might not actually be damaged, or it might not be in most areas. I can't remember how it works.
Yeah.
The whole, so that could very well happen.
Yeah.
There could be a giant flare event, and then
Biolabs just gets...
Biolabs, whatever security they have fails, and it goes out. Sort of similar in the idea to Y2K, where they were worried about nukes going off and that sort of thing.
I feel like, right, if you have a biolab and you're studying something really dangerous, you should have a system which is like as as analog as possible, which basically if it detects like the security fails of the lab, it just like tactical nukes itself.
Well, they might have features like that, not to that degree, but that would also mean you suddenly have a bunch of nukes going off everywhere.
I think like a small tactical nuke.
I don't know if a nuke is the right choice.
No, because all organic material gets incinerated. Yeah. There is no chance of a virus or a
but you could just like
bacteria surviving. It's just kablamo. It's gone.
You could just flood it with like chlorine or something. You don't have to like poison the land forever.
But the chlorine like might not get it. Like it might escape. With the nuke, it's just gone.
There's moss in Chernobyl that's feeding off of the radiation.
Yeah, but it's feeding off the radiation. It's not feeding off the leftover things.
And
a tactical nuke can be quite small. It can be a quite small area that it evaporates.
I'm sure there is fail-safes in place. Like you look at even bank vaults, they have like tamper detections where you crack a sheet of glass if you're drilling into it, and it releases a spring, and because it's tempered glass, and so the tempered glass, if you crack it anywhere, the whole thing shatters, and then it releases a very powerful spring that seals the vault so it can't be opened unless you cut it open.
Well, the nuclear reactors of Chernobyl you're talking about, they actually have a defense mechanism like that as well, which is basically if there's a material underneath which the whole stuff is resting on, which melts faster than when going critical would basically happen. And so most of the old nuclear reactor designs are over pits. And so a nuclear reactor, basically the material underneath it melts and everything falls into that pit, and the pit is filled with like lead shielding and heavy water. And that's actually what the mammoth's foot is made out of, is that melted drop in Chernobyl, although everything went wrong in Chernobyl, and so even that system didn't completely work.
But I'm sure there are fail-safes for a lot of these biolabs in the first place. But I basically a takeaway was I updated my files that are in my little Faraday cage I store, and I thought, what should I put in this? It's like, I'm going to put in like one of these local large language models, a little local one. Put that in there. Put in the front end for it, so that I can run it.
I was just thinking, like the crazy cabin, like the guy who lives by himself in the woods, crazy cabin, sort of what you are.
What do you mean?
That's what you would be. Anyways, it's just like your house in the future is just like a giant aluminum cage is around it.
Well, I was thinking it might make
Like the most silly version of that, because you could build it into the walls of a house.
Well, I was thinking it might make sense to have, like, canopy beds, right?
Yeah.
Make that a Faraday cage instead, so that you go to sleep inside a little shelter. I was thinking about how showers, people often take showers to feel refreshed and cleansed, and there's this ritual of water. But what you're also doing in the shower is you're actually blocking radiation. You're blocking electromagnetic radiation, you're grounding your body's charges, and you're blocking a lot of sound, which is kind of a form of radiation.
Yeah.
And you're blocking, well, depending on the room, you're blocking light. You're
screwing with radar.
You've created a little isolation chamber, sort of.
Yeah.
And I wonder how resetting that could actually be, because there's a lot of cosmic radiation, there's a lot of human-made radiation going on, and there's a lot of just wires running through your house. So all the electromagnetic radiation from wires in your walls and that sort of thing. I think that's an issue too. And that might be what showers do. Just a sort of grounding feature. But if that could be one of the things that stops AI from really taking off. And
is a solar flare.
Yeah. There's actually apparently a paper written quite a while ago.
Ha ha ha, behold world, I shall destroy you. Oh damn, the stupid sun. Blurg.
Or it could be that it takes a civilization about 100 years to make an AI, and there's never enough time to... That's what the three-body problem is kind of about, actually, is the aliens on this planet, they can never get enough time to solve their problem, because they live in a dual star
hell orbit
solar system. So their gravity is always flipping, and the amount of sunlight they get's always changing, and it's destroying their lives. And so they can never... But they're like the toughest creatures in the universe because they've evolved to withstand all this. Yeah. So basically they can turn to glass like tardigrades. And so it's like, oh, cataclysm, everyone turn to glass and go around. But there was a paper written, I think, a few decades ago where the theory was that if you prop your entire society up on electronics, that might be the only way to develop fast enough to explore the universe.
Yeah.
You might need to have this massive centralized infrastructure in order to get spaceships and rockets and start exploring. But it could be that the degree to which you have to rely on electronics if you do that is so extreme that a solar flare will cripple or destroy your society.
So we basically need domed cities.
So if if we lost the internet right now, it would destroy a lot of stuff. And a lot of... This is one thing I hadn't considered, but a lot of code is proprietary. So a lot of companies don't share their code, which means most people don't have access to it or have it stored on their computer. Yeah. Which means if there's a solar flare, the people that wrote that code, they've moved on, they're dead, they don't remember what they did. Yeah. We just lose everything, and we can't get it back. So this paper's theory was that the answer to the Fermi paradox and the Drake equation is that there might be a great filter, and that great filter might be solar flares.
Well, wouldn't the mole people then be the rulers of the universe?
Maybe. I don't know how this stuff... Like, it was the subways that were hit in New York, right? So I don't know how this penetrates underground or not.
The mole people who live on Illumina, planet made of aluminum.
But maybe the mole people don't have the same desire to explore the stars.
Yeah.
Maybe you have to live on the surface to explore the stars. But it could be that the only...
That whole, in Hitchhiker's Guide, where they had that cloud of darkness.
Yeah.
We're so isolated and so lovely. Then they saw the universe and it made them really angry, and so they tried to destroy it.
They see the stars and they're like, it'll have to go. Yeah. So it could be that there could be hyper advanced civilizations out there, but we would in the universe, but we'd never meet them because they never take the only path to exploring the universe, which is developing electronics.
Yeah. And
so it could be, like the Egyptians, let's say they were hyper advanced, but they never did electronics and spaceships and that sort of thing.
They had all sound-based technology.
Yeah, because they couldn't do the other stuff. And they could have had... they could have had electromagnetism in a different sense, like a sort of natural electromagnetism, like how the pyramids amplify electromagnetism in the area, and they redirect it.
Do you think if you took a shower in like the middle of the pyramids, like right at the bottom, like it would, I don't know, be like a super version of what you're saying with the scrub?
So,
or even just going into the center of the pyramids might affect you?
So in the king's chamber, I think it is, there's a sarcophagus. And if you lie in that sarcophagus, it is said to have many beneficial properties.
Yeah.
There's not many people that have done that, and there's, because it's not allowed.
Yeah, and the king's like, oi, this mud, get it.
Well, no, I mean, like, we don't have any historical record of it ever being used in Egypt.
Yeah.
We don't have any historical record of anything other than maybe the building of the pyramids, but we don't know what went into it. But when people hundreds or thousands of years later eventually drilled into it, they discovered these things.
Yeah.
And so there's Napoleon laying the sarcophagus. Graham Hancock is laying in the sarcophagus. And those are the only two people I know that have.
And they both are insane.
But the Egyptian authorities now really don't like people touching their stuff.
Yeah.
But so that idea of that, it could be that pyramid is, the sarcophagus like structure, because there's never been any bodies found in the pyramid.
Yeah.
But that, as I understand, but that structure, that sarcophagus could be an ancient isolation chamber. That could be the spot you go and sit in. Maybe they filled it with salt water before as well, so you could float in it in one of those sort of actual isolation chambers.
Yeah.
Who knows?
All right, guys. The city's too noisy. So, here's what we're going to do.
I need a 500-foot tall pyramid.
Made of stone blocks that each weigh like 20 tons.
We don't have any stone here. Okay, we're going to ship it for 100 miles.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to need 100,000 people to work for 10 years to build me this 500-foot pyramid so I can just get a moment's sleep. Just, it's so annoying.
Yeah.
It's finally done. Finally. Just like 10 million dead people, all the slaves just dead outside.
I don't think many people died building it.
No, well, I don't know. I don't think it's even... I don't think even mainstream archaeology thinks that slaves built it in the first place now. But just that idea of like, you have 100,000 slaves just dead outside. Just, finally, a moment of peace and quiet. Man.
Probably would be very, very quiet in the center of the pyramid.
Yeah, but the acoustics are... I can't remember, but they're unusual. They're unusual. There was...
Yep. I know Egypt's trying to protect its heritage, and maybe there's some really wacky, cool stuff in there. But could we get like full, proper documentation just by one crew of the whole pyramid released?
I don't know if I remember. I don't know if I said this to you.
Because there's like that tunnel which they then closed up. And...
I don't know if I said this to you or not. I don't remember, or if I said it on the show. But I have a theory that tunnel you're talking about, that they just kind of pretend doesn't exist anymore.
And like the tunnel underneath the Sphinx as well and all that.
Might lead to a wall or something like that with writing on it that we were able to translate and is irrefutable proof that the Egyptians didn't build the pyramids. Something like that. I think that could be what it is.
Is the truth so devastating that it can't be said?
Not exactly. It's more like Egypt has a very high... has an economy founded on tourism.
Yeah.
And if they can't say they were the ones that did all this, then that impacts their tourism.
I feel like that'd make it cooler.
Well, if it's just like the Egyptians came in and killed the people that were there 20 years before and took their stuff, then it's suddenly... Because the Egyptians have this long...
Like the Denisovans built the pyramids and then the Egyptians came and snatched it.
Well, that would be kind of neat. But no, if it was like, I don't know, the Hittites built the pyramids.
Yeah.
Or the Jews built the pyramids.
Yeah.
And the Jews were the original people that lived in Egypt. And the whole Old Kingdom was actually a Jewish kingdom. And that's why Moses was related to Ramses. It wasn't because of an adoption. It was actually because he was just his brother or something. Yeah. That would totally ruin the mythology of this is our country and our land. And that would hurt your tourism business. That is my little conspiracy theory. That it could be something like that. I don't think they would... If it was something really interesting, I do wonder. Like, that was another thing Anton Petrov talked about, was that pyramid in Indonesia, which is possibly the oldest structure on Earth.
Yeah.
And he was talking about this new discovery, it's not. Like, I was Graham Hancock's book from like the 80s. He talks about this thing.
Yeah, but Graham Hancock's discoveries don't count, don't you know?
And he was saying in those books, we need to look at this thing because it's ancient, and the Indonesian government was like, no, you can't touch it. And I don't remember what their reason was. It might have been they didn't want a bunch of foreign researchers coming in to take all their glory, but they didn't have the money to do it themselves. So it's just sort of the stalemate for 30 years.
Yeah.
But they've looked into it now. They've done soil samples, and the soil appears very old, which doesn't actually sound like anything to me. Like,
It's old dirt.
I don't actually know what that means.
That dirt's old.
Like, isn't all dirt the same age? Like, how do you I guess at the point of decomposition or something?
Yeah.
But
There's some pretty new dirt in the back of some trucks where like the moss grows and it goes.
Yeah. But you think you could go to someone's backyard and grab a bit of dirt and it would be like 10,000 years old.
Well, you say that, but here, right? We've got that thin layer of ash,
Right.
and then there's a bunch of soil on top of it.
So the suggestion
And
would...
so that ash layer is what, like 800 years old or something? And then, so all the soil on top of that would be newer.
So I guess the theory then would be that the Indonesian pyramids were buried purposely or something like that, or the dirt was buried by because that whole area was flooded. There used to be like a continent basically there. Indonesia used to be like this actual land, and that's Graham Hancock, I believe's favorite theory for Atlantis is Indonesia, because he had that one theory. I think it was off the coast of India or Thailand, where he said there should be a big city down here based on all these stories, and talking to these fishermen, these deep sea divers and stuff. And then they went and looked, and yep, there was right there. There was all these flooded cities. So there was a civilization out there that got flooded, and so it does work for the Atlantis story. But there could have been multiple flooded civilizations, and the timescale as well. It's hard to say. Like, was this there's a city and now it's flooded, like in the story of Atlantis, or was this water's getting close, let's move, sort of, and then it got flooded over time.
The pyramids. Okay, you say that I call this magnetic thing, right?
Yeah.
When I said the pyramids, I sound very much like the history presenter, like one of those people. But pyramids, right? So they send out beams that go around the Earth, and they amplify the magnetic shielding around the Earth. So even though we had that coronal mass ejection that hit the lines and like made them burn, but you said it's usually dispersed, they actually stop that apocalypse that you're saying. Like, it's only ever going to be dispersed. They shatter it, so it shotguns across the Earth instead of actually.
So then wouldn't we...
And so there's a bunch of pyramids all around the Earth, but because we stopped building them and some of them are covered and not maintained anymore, there's less of that shield now.
So then we should be able, with the Mars rovers, notice a difference on Mars, right? And also on Venus, I think, has a magnetic... No, Venus has a magnetic field, but it's a different sort of magnetic field.
Isn't Venus's, like, spinning the wrong way?
It's not created by their core of their planet. It's created by their atmosphere or something. It's like a totally different mechanism, I think, is how that works. So, yeah, there's some weird things. Venus has, like, these jagged bars of energy that it, like, flash and appear and disappear, right? And so they're, okay, lightning. But it's not lightning. It looks like lightning and it acts like lightning, but it's a totally different mechanism from lightning.
We send a probe that can survive Venus, and we're going to discover the weird acid men that live there.
Well, what I think is so fascinating. So they turned the James Webb Telescope at Jupiter recently, as in many months ago now. But and they
went, oh, that's too weird, and they turned it away.
Well, they discovered a bunch of different kinds of storm they didn't know existed.
Yeah, that's why I said Jupiter's weird.
And they looked at its moons. Europa is giving out CO2 from under the ice.
Yeah.
And in such quantities that it's like, that's like the only way we really know that makes that is life. Now there's a few other mechanisms that could do it, but they're not sustained. So basically we have to look back every couple months for the next, I can't remember, like 5-10 months. And we'll be able to go, that might be life on Europa.
There might be a creature farting on Europa.
Yeah, underwater. Yeah. But they looked at Io, which is the volcanic planet, because we don't understand our own volcanoes, right? Io's volcanoes don't work the same way as ours. That's pretty much what was determined. Because they, what did they determine? Their volcanoes are a lot weaker the further north you get, which isn't, it doesn't, on Earth it doesn't matter. It's like, the volcano's strength is going to override how cold it is, no matter what, right?
Yeah.
But on Io, what's going on, they think now, based on the distribution of the volcanoes, which are everywhere, is that it actually is just a giant lake of lava with a thin skin of rock on it. And so these are... Now there is a planet there, or a moon there, but there's like oceans of lava.
So as like Io's core, instead of being iron, it's like a giant chunk of thorium.
I don't know, but there's it could still be iron because it gets really condensed after with weight. But so their volcanoes are actually just a really thin skin. Now there was another scan done of Earth recently, which gives us potentially a clue into Earth's volcanoes. And it's really weird because you look at the scans and it looks like there's a second Earth inside Earth.
The hollow Earth theory.
No.
Well, no, that is the hollow Earth. There's an Earth inside
No,
Earth, and there's like a layer, and that's where all the dinosaurs live.
No. This is like a double Earth theory because there's like twice as much Earth. It's like if you have one Earth and another Earth and you squish them together, and the end Earth is the same volume as the old Earth. So it's not a hollow Earth; it's a double Earth.
All right, just to go even more crazy with the pyramid thing. So we know how we've had like this unusually good period of stable weather. I mean, relative to like the last several thousand years.
Yeah. So you're talking about the end of the Ice Age period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if the pyramids are what make that happen.
I mean, maybe. But then we probably shouldn't touch them.
Well, they're degrading.
Right.
And so we need to build more pyramids. And we need to spread them out more across the world.
Right. So back to the double Earth. So we looked at...
Enough of that crazy nonsense. Double Earth time.
So we looked at the Earth, and it looks like there's another Earth inside the Earth. And the lead theory for what that actually is that there's another Earth inside the Earth. Because it was called Theia, I believe, was the other planet. So there's a theory that the moon was created when Theia and Earth collided.
Yeah.
And the leftovers of Theia are the moon. Mm-hmm. But the rest of Theia went somewhere, and the thought is that it might have gone inside Earth and been folded inside.
And so we got a bunch of themes.
So we have a bunch of these super dense blobs of matter in the core. And so the core isn't even in the slightest. It's got like continents in the mantle, or no, below the mantle, I guess. We've got these like super dense pockets. And they seem to line up with volcanoes. So volcanoes might be...
Theia trying to escape.
Theia trying to escape, yeah. Or it could be the density pushing it up, or it could be like extra heat from the density or something like that. These pockets. So yeah, Theia trying to escape, which is a really cool thing, I think. But what I find, and then this is related. This was all Anton's channel actually, or most of this was. There's a study of the brain done. So I think you did psychology in school.
Yes.
And you had to learn the different cells in the brain, like the dendrite and the
axon.
And the axon and that sort of thing. And there's like 6 of them or whatever it was. So this study found 3,000 more. So that class is going to get a little bit harder.
It's already hard enough. I don't remember the dendrite. I hate to admit this, but here's my magic is why I could remember what the dendrite was, because the dendrite looks a bit like a tree, and dendrite soldier.
I mean, that's why they're called dendrites.
I know, but that's my connection always was dendrite. That's the tree-like thing that branches off themselves.
But that is correct. They are both tree-like.
Yeah.
Like dendroid means tree-like, and dendrite means like a tree or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, they have the same root.
Yeah, but whenever that came up in both biology and psychology, I thought of like the slow-moving tree man.
Whatever works.
Yeah.
But and it is actually more correct than you might have thought at the time.
And there's the myelin sheaths. That's another thing. They're the little fatty salt blobs.
Okay. Yeah. But it doesn't matter because there's actually like more than 3,000 more of these things. And the other crazy thing about this is not only is there 3,000 cells, different people have them in different quantities and they have different ones. So 2 people might not share the same cells. The same type of brain cells, or at least not all of them. So
I have the excuse for being a lazy idiot, which is my brain's different than someone else's.
So people are actually individual snowflakes, yes.
Yeah.
The other thing is that human brains have a lot of
mercury and aluminum in them.
Oh, okay. No, I'll go back a bit. So they studied. This was a massive study where they were looking at tons of animal brains, tons of human brains, and if you're wondering how they got the brains, they took them, I guess. they were given them a lot of times. A lot of these are from living humans. I'm not sure if they're from living animals. It's people like they have super bad epilepsy, so they have like their hippocampus severed or something like that. So you just get a chunk of their brain and give it to science, I guess.
Okay, Hannibals.
Yeah. Well, they don't eat it.
Yeah.
It's more like oh, I've lost the term. Anyways, so they're studying all these brains, and I guess one bias there could be you're looking at a lot of dead, crazy brains in the humans at least. But the animals, I don't know if they're just going for dead, crazy animals, but they found that young animals and old animals also have very different brains. So they have these cells which they think are related to learning in the young animals. So like a gorilla, for example, has these huge amount of these young cells, and I think why they think they're for learning is they can change nature to some extent.
Yeah.
So there's sort of shape-shifting cells, something like that. But as they get older, they basically choose a shape and they stay there. So,
Yeah.
so the stem cells of the brain maybe is a way to look at it. I'm sure that some neuroscience would hate that analogy, but
Stem cells of the brain.
that's how I'm going to think about it. And so by the time a gorilla or a chimpanzee, I think it was, reaches about 9 or 10, they're done with these cells. And it's true for most animals. Once they reach adulthood, these cells go away. Once they reach 2 or 3, or in a dog or something. The interesting thing was humans never stop having these baby young cells. And so humans are a neotenous species.
But we do collect the old ones, right?
I'm not sure if we do. Like, we never... I don't want to use the term ossify, but we never stop having adolescent brains, basically.
And so senile people...
So, no, because it's not senility, that the rigidity, right? Because
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, the senile person, why they're so weird is maybe they're getting overwhelmed by...
Yeah.
Or they have too many young cells and it's just, like, gibbered.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
But, like, so you get your old animal, right? And its brain ossifies. And then it's just, like, the old dog doesn't learn new tricks anymore and it keeps to a sliced pattern. And it's not overloaded anymore. But then the human brain's, like, gets to a point, it's like, all right, we'll put this in here and then we'll, like, squeeze that in here and... Well, there's not enough room here, so I'll have a little bit dribble out the ear. And...
But the interesting thing is, like you said, old dog, new tricks. That isn't exactly right, because you can teach an old dog new tricks. And gorillas can learn new things when they're adults. So it's some sort of way of... This is my sort of personal theory. It might be a sense of knowing or confidence or being. Yeah. Like, you sort of occupy your brain. You say, I am what I am and I know what I know. I think that might be what it becomes. Because a gorilla knows how to be a gorilla, right? Yeah. But humans, we have wars and we write plays about how do you be a human. Like, we have no idea what we're doing. We make gods and we blast rockets into space and we do all sorts of stuff.
Dogs' personality, like, you have your dog's personality and it develops over its lifespan. But that dog is usually the dog, if that makes sense. I've often found that with most dogs, is that dog's usually the dog. And wisdom adds on to that, and, like, life experience adds on to that, but the dog is the dog. But people can completely change.
So it could be, like, personality or something as well. Yeah. But you know how humans are neotenous, right? Like, we're like giant babies. We've talked about this before on the show, I think. Yeah. Dogs are to a lesser degree as well, or maybe to a greater degree physically. They're like giant baby wolves. And the most obvious example is the axolotl, which is a giant baby salamander.
Yeah.
But humans are giant baby apes, and dogs are giant baby wolves.
So it's saying, so, like, the axolotl, right? They can actually not axolotlify.
You mean they can't turn into a salamander?
They can turn into a salamander. It's, like, can't axolotls actually be a salamander instead of being stuck in that baby form forever?
If you inject them with hormones, yeah.
So,
but that's because they're an amphibian.
Okay. So, if we submerge a person in, like, salt water and then check them with hormones, can we, like, get a giant ape human that's a grown human? I'm asking is, can we get some super ape?
Can we get...
Because, like, if we're the baby ape, right? If we're the axolotl, like, axolotls are so weird compared to salamanders.
Yeah.
So, like... The grown-up human is like this giant gorilla man.
I've seen pictures of I don't know if it's based on anything, but it's artist impressions of I don't know what you would call it, but a properly adult human sort of
Well,
thing.
it's like Bigfoot, right?
Basically, yeah. Or like you know the Giga Chad meme?
Yeah.
Like the black and white photo of that dude?
Yeah.
How they took that bodybuilder and then they photoshopped him to have like the ridiculous jaw and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like that, because what you can do is you can look at how gorillas change and their jaws get bigger as they get adult, right? So the proper human might be like they would have more defined bones and thicker, denser bones and that sort of thing.
So I've watched these videos of like bone adjustment, like face adjustments.
Like bone smashing?
It's not bone smashing. No, they don't break the bones. But it's literally human bones actually can have be twisted because of pressure, and you don't need to break them to adjust them. You just need to move them, and that's like part of what chiropractic is. And like one of the videos is this girl was talking about she wanted to go get a nose job, and it looked like the chiropractor basically broke her nose. Like, damn, but he basically like just compressed her nose and like snapped it. And instead of it being bent one way, it just like started working again. It was going the way. And that was more cartilage. That case, but like human bones are far more malleable than you would think. Like even we can stretch bones. Like there is that process. You can. Do you not know about that?
I have a friend who
You break them and like lengthen the leg and
yeah, no, I have a friend who one of his legs is way shorter than the other, and so he actually did go through a process of doing that. It's a nightmarish process.
Yeah, it's nightmare. It's terrible.
Like for like 2 years, he had this iron bars drilled into the bones of his leg in multiple places, and he had a cage around his leg, and like it was not easy on him. And his foot is still like 2 sizes smaller than the other foot. Yeah, there's not much you can do about that as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, but for something that you think of bone. Like, that's actually surprisingly malleable.
Yeah. Just bone stretching sounds horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is, from what I've seen.
But, like, a human skull, like, baby skulls, you know how they're not solid? Human skulls aren't actually completely solid.
For the record, I want to clarify. This isn't a guy who's a bit self-conscious about one leg being half an inch shorter than the other. It's, like, half the size of the other leg. Yeah. Not that at all, but it's, like, he can't walk properly and stuff, so he had to do this.
But, like, human skulls can be adjusted... and like the facial bones, like it's part of the tendon and muscles, but basically if you have no jaw strength, you have that like pathetic little in-jaw, and that's based on tendon placement, but the jaw actually becomes more prominent the more muscle you have, and
to a degree.
Yeah, to a degree. And like there's cases of people having really messed up knees and ankles, and if they develop more muscle there, then they actually line better because the muscle like draws it into place.
Yeah.
And so when you said like the bigger jaw on the gorilla thing, that's just what made me think of all
well, there's that whole, I don't know if you've heard of mewing, but it's...
Well, isn't that like literally smashing either side of your face?
No, that's bone smashing.
Okay.
No, mewing is where you're going to do it now that I tell you about it, just because you won't be able to stop thinking about it. But it's where you place your tongue against the roof of your mouth and you press the tip of your tongue against the back of your teeth, but not like hard against it, just resting there.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like sucked to the top of your mouth, like.
Yeah, I know about that.
It forces you to breathe through your nose, basically.
Yeah, I didn't know that was called mewing.
And it also, I guess, it constantly stresses your
jaw.
Your jaw. So the idea is that it gives you a better jaw. Lewis Spears, actually, funnily enough, I have a thing about him here. Lewis Spears, he's a comedian I used to watch on YouTube, and then he stopped really uploading videos, or I thought what had happened was I just hadn't been searching him out, so, I stopped seeing his videos and just sort of fade away. But apparently he stopped for about 2 years. And the reason was he wasn't sleeping.
Yeah.
He couldn't sleep. He would go to sleep and he wouldn't dream, and then he'd wake up tired. And he was like that for most of his life.
Yeah.
And he said, I never got any rest. I never dreamed. And I was just slowly dying. And finally I decided I have to admit I'm sick and I need to get help. And so he, because it was just literally killing him. And a lot of people with his condition, if they don't get treated, they die at like 50 from a lack of oxygen.
Yeah, chronic fatigue, that's what that condition is called partly. That's the main symptoms. A lot of conditions give you that. Apparently is one of the most horrible ways to die. And it's because it's a death, like you said, that happens over 40 years.
Yeah.
And it just kills you.
And it just stresses you to death. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you don't have any oxygen and your heart just gets weaker and weaker.
Your body just slowly dies.
Everything gets weaker and weaker. And you never have any energy. And so, I had chronic fatigue with my diet or something. Well, yeah. there's a lot of different causes for it.
Yeah.
His cause was that he wasn't getting any oxygen. And it's because his jaw was like pressed against his back of his throat, basically.
Yeah.
So when he was asleep, he's not getting any air whatsoever, basically. And so he had to get this massive jaw surgery to bring his whole jaw forward like 2 inches. And he was talking about in the video, he's like, people said, you try mewing. He's like, yeah, I don't think pressing my tongue against the back of my mouth is going to move my jaw forward 2 inches.
Yeah, it's like you see that person with the horrible messed up teeth, like really, really fast. I think you should get braces. That is not something braces can fix. Braces are minor adjustments over time.
Yeah.
This is like, you need that full, like the head cage braces for like...
Well, for his, I don't know what they did exactly. I don't know. Science is like this, medical science is like this horrible mixture of origami and like torture.
Yep.
But like they took out one of his front teeth so they could put a tube down his throat to do this series of surgeries on him. And then they used braces to close the gap where the tooth was. I don't get how teeth can move that much, but...
There was a thing that happened in China recently, which is there was an industrial accident with one of the workers, and his hand came cleanly off. And so a quick-acting guy on the site took his hand and stitched it to his ankle, to the side of his foot. And he cut his foot and then stitched it to the side there. And so they basically bled into each other and was held in place. And then when they got him to hospital, they managed to take his foot, the hand back off his foot and reattach it, and it worked.
Why would you let anyone stitch your hand to your ankle? If I cut my hand off, right?
Yeah.
And one of my fellow construction workers ran over to me with a needle and thread. He's like, okay, just, where's your hand? Where's your hand? Okay, good. I'll stitch it to your ankle. I'd be like, what? No, I'm going to the hospital. He's like, no, I got to stitch it to your ankle. It's like, no, I'm going to the hospital. Like, let me stitch it to your ankle, man. I got to stitch it to... No. Just get some ice or something. I'm out of here. My friend, he sliced the tip of his finger off.
Yeah. And
another guy I know, he was like, you got to pour salt on it. And so he poured salt on it. It's like, that's the last time I ever trusted. but that's the sort of situation I imagine, where it's just neither person has any clue what they're doing. Yeah. And the one guy's like, you sliced your finger off, you got to pour salt on it. Okay, pour salt on it.
You got to shove it up your nose.
Because they were working in a kitchen, right? They had he sliced his finger on one of those bread slicers.
Yeah.
And so he's like, you got to pour salt on it. Okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't it was I don't know, a couple millimeters off the tip sort of thing. It wasn't well, actually, it was enough to shorten his finger, but it wasn't crazy. I don't think any bone was hit. But people that take Lewis Spears, the surgery he did, I was reading cases about them where the guy's like, I lost all feeling in my jaw, and for 14 years it hasn't recovered. I've always got a little bit of pain in my teeth around there. Totally worth it.
Yeah. Because
you can breathe. Lewis Spears said he did all the surgery. He was recovering a bit off the drugs. Went to sleep. He said the best sleep of his life. It was unbelievable. He said he dreamed, and this is why I keep mentioning dreams, because he said he dreamed for the first time in 15 years, and it freaked him out because he's like, what's going on? I'm going crazy. I'm hallucinating. I'm tripping out. Yeah. I'm tripping out while I'm asleep. What's going on? Because he hadn't done it in so long.
Yeah.
Which also makes me wonder how much dreams are related to rest. There's obviously...
Maybe dream means you're resting.
Yeah.
Which is what the whole REM sleep thing is.
And at least sorting ideas.
Yeah.
And, it's just a very happy story in a lot of ways, but it's also... Well, I wonder on two parts there, right? You see a lot of these people, they're like, you got to do the bone smash. Bone smashing, you don't actually break stuff. You just, tap it and the minute fractures build up bone.
There was a trend of actual really hard hitting on TikTok, because probably someone heard about bone smash and was like, oh, and so they took a hammer to their own face to give themselves the jawline, and people were getting massive bruises and really disfigured faces doing it.
Well, you will disfigure your face even with the tapping, if you're doing it crazy enough to act, because the idea is that you fracture the bone slightly and it grows back, because you can do that. Those dudes that punch banana trees, that's what they're doing. They're doubling the thickness of their fingers.
Yeah, well, I got told off by a doctor who he's just doing a physical on me about my rib cage. He's like, you slept on your side a lot when you were a kid, didn't you? And it's yeah. It's was it always the same size? Yep. And it's my whole rib cage is protrudes at an angle.
Yeah, so there is a degree of stuff you can do, but it does also unless you're a incredibly artist with it, you're gonna get a lumpy jaw if you get anything at all. and it's not going to improve your breathing if you do it that way. But the mewing, so the theory behind that, I guess, is that, see if I get this right, babies who breastfeed for longer tend to have better jaw lines than when they're older.
It's because they're constantly going.
Well, yeah, because it's more of a more sucking motion.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Yeah, and so the mewing is sort of emulate. Now, is that too late by that point? I don't know. Not entirely, obviously, because
it's just excusing an oral fixation. I remember meeting like two people that talked about oral fixations. It was on what's that called? Taskmaster. We were talking about things, and one of the comedians had oral fixation. And a different male comedian next to us. So if I do this, and he like lifts up his shirt, shows, yeah, no, I want to latch onto it. And I don't know if that one comedian was just like kept running the bit, but I was just like,
but yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is I think there's a limit to what you can do with just a bit of like bone manipulation, but I don't know what it is, and it's probably a lot higher than a lot of people would think.
Yes.
And the other thing is, Louis Spears talked about it. He said to the doctor, like, should I try mewing? And the doctor's like, what's that? And he explained it, and the doctor's like, no, you need surgery. Like, they sort of laughed at him for it. The thing is, you don't ask your barber if you need a haircut.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you don't. So, this $5,000 surgery, could I just do this simple exercise instead, or do I need to give you $5,000? No, you got to give me $5,000. Like, he's not the guy you go to for that necessarily. And it's tricky with the whole eyeglass industry. Actually, a bit dodgy in that
this lens will slowly destroy your eyes, meaning that you'll be stronger and stronger.
Yeah, but you're also getting there is that aspect, and on top of that, you're also going to the optician to say, "Do I need glasses? Do I need to buy glasses from you?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, you need to buy glasses from me." Oh yeah, yep, definitely. And the other thing is we've set a 20/20 standard, which is kind of arbitrary.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's based on any averages that we have, but it's sort of like eyes have to be this way. It's like, why?
Look, the 20/20 standard, if it wasn't there, I mean, I don't know for you, but for me, it would mean like being a meter away from the chalkboard in school.
Yeah. Well, for driving as well, like it's probably a bare minimum for driving.
Yeah.
But we could have chosen something else.
Yeah.
Maybe that is just what most people have. Maybe that is the mode. But the other thing is,
maybe it's something really stupid like the boiling temperature in American and feet, like all those measurements. Like it's 2020 is what John 20's vision was when he threw a javelin that broke some record, and that's what it's all based on.
It's just that's the tradition now.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's probably better to just have if you're going to have a standard, just pick one. Probably.
Yeah.
Makes sense to a degree. The other thing is, I read a few stories about this. How the glasses that you get from the optometrist tend to be way more expensive than like going to some online store.
Oh yeah.
Like
these glasses I have are bought online, and they were like I think around $100.
If you go to something like Clearly Contacts or something, they tend to be way cheaper. But and you also look at there's those $70 glasses, which are probably more around $150 now with inflation. But
well, a teacher of ours, he had like a reading prescription which was really basic, and there's always a joke that one of his arms was always snapped off, and so someone bought him about 20 different pairs of glasses and snapped the left arm off every single glasses and gave them to him in a Ziploc bag. And so whenever he'd do reading for a class, he'd just like reach in and draw them around. And sometimes he had like a horn-rimmed glasses that you'd see in the Far Side comic. Sometimes with no glasses, he had like these bright pink glasses. So and it was like a completely random group of reading glasses, but all of them worked for him prescription-wise.
Well, that is something else. You can go to the what's it called? The drug market?
Yeah,
the pharmacy.
Pharmacy.
The pharmacy. You can go to the drugstore, and they have reading glasses, and they're like $10 or something. They're not expensive. Maybe less. I've never bought them, but that is very different. I had a friend come to me once and say like, "Hey, which like drug market do you get your glasses from?" or something like that. And I was sort of taken aback. I was like, "No," because he's like, I think my eyes are going bad. I was like, "No. You might be having trouble reading some words, but that is very different from what I have.
Yes.
I need glasses to see."
One of my eyeballs is pointy.
Actually, no, my eyes are not I have no astigmatisms or anything.
Yeah, no, one of my eyeballs is pointy.
Yeah. No, and actually, without glasses, I can see most things. They're just lacking definition, I guess.
Yeah.
But I can differentiate. Our stepsister can't. Everything just becomes this smear for her. But for me, I can still differentiate it, like, but it's by color instead of by line.
Well, apparently there's a thing you can do with an iPhone, like the newer iPhones, which they have an auto adjust. So what you do is you take your glasses and you make it look through the glasses lens, and then you lock this adjustment filter and you put your glasses back on, then everyone can see what your prescription, like what it looks like without your glasses on.
Or you can just put your glasses on their face.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that actually works or not, like the putting the glasses on their face, but it's a rough idea, I guess.
Well, no, so the filter is basically adjusting to see through it. So it's different. It's different than putting glasses on. So basically the filter is making itself look like your eyes look, and then it can see through your lens perfectly.
Right.
And so then when you take the glasses away and leave it locked, then that's what your eyes would be without the glasses. So it's basically adjusting itself to your lens glasses filter. And that's different than putting your glasses on someone, because that's making them look at your prescription instead of how you see without glasses.
My issue with that is there's like 2 or 3 aspects at least to sight. So there's acuity, and then there's diopter, I think are the 2 big ones. And diopter is the range at which you see things that other people see things. So
like Legolas has a really good diopter?
So I have a -7 diopter, which means I need to be, I don't know,
within 7 people of them.
7 feet in front of a thing that a normal... So if a normal person could look at a target and they could be 20 feet away from it, I have to be 7 feet beyond the target to see as good as they do. Or they can be 27 feet away to see something I can see at 20 feet.
So Legolas has a really good diopter? He has like a 200 diopter?
Yeah, but then acuity is how much things blend into each other.
Yeah.
And my acuity is probably above average, if anything, because I can read very small text.
Yeah.
I can read microscopic text, like stuff that people can't even read with microscopes. I can read that with my bare eyes. Yeah. Like I can read
microfilm.
No, chips. What computer chips. I can read computer chips with my bare eye.
Can't everyone do that?
Depends on the chip, but but no. There's some smaller chips and bigger chips, but yeah, no, not everyone, no. But then there's also an aspect, and I don't know if acuity accounts for this.
Interpretation or something?
Yeah, interpretation, where your brain does a lot of the work. So when they measure you at the optometrist, they don't actually... they could just scan your eye and say, okay, this is the glasses you need. There is actually tools that do that, literally. Yeah. But I think...
Why they say option 1, option 2 is
they're seeing what you can compensate for, I think, to a degree. Because if you are able to compensate like 10 times as good as a normal person, then you might as well get the lesser glasses because they're cheaper, for one thing, lighter.
Yeah.
And also...
Yeah, well, that was the thing. Like, I was really good when I was younger at those optometrist eye reader things. Like, what letter is that? And I was like, that looks like an E. And so I'd say E. And, like, I could barely make it out, but I knew it was an E.
Yeah. And there is an aspect there, I think, like, here's my thought about the school system, right? If you can cheat your way through all of school and never get caught, maybe you deserve the grades you got? I don't know. Like if you can prepare, like you walk into the optometrist's office, right? Yeah. You walk by their eye chart, you memorize it in a glance. Yeah. You sit down. It's like, maybe you don't need the glasses because you memorize the road. You're like, oh yeah, that pickup truck. I know that guy. I know how he drives. Yep, no problem. That's a red pickup truck. There's only 2 people that have one, and one of them is working right now. So
Rain Man with bad eyesight is allowed to drive.
Yeah, he doesn't need glasses. But I always used to get super scared when I was at the optometrist because I didn't want to mislead them into thinking my eyes were better than they thought they were. So I'd always err on the side of, I don't know, I'm not sure. Well, it could be a G or it could be a C.
Yeah, well, actually, on that, the real Rain Man, like the actual person that it was based off of. There's this guy, he has to sit in a wheelchair because he's like doesn't function completely. He spends most of his life in libraries, and he reads books both pages at a time, and these are like heavy tomes. And he just goes like, looks down, turns the page, looks down, turns the page, looks down, turns the page. And that's his life. And he basically remembers everything from every book he's read, and it's just kind of insane.
And he likes it, I guess.
Yeah, but he can like read two things at once, so that's like what brain interpretation is going on there. Like both eyes are reading.
I wonder if that's like I can read a page at a time,
Yeah.
like a snapshot, like especially if it's a small page.
I know you're reading Comprehensions, Mr. End of Mistborn series.
No, but like you had that kids book,
Yeah.
that was like that reading learning book, and I was able to read a page.
That's because there was half a sentence on each page. You were just reading a sentence.
Okay, but that's still reading more than like you can probably read a word at a time, right? Like it's all the same process. You're reading.
No, I can't. I read sentences. Individual words are harder. I read based on about 5-word chunks that are the correct shape altogether. And so when it's a word I don't know, then I have to really stare at for a while and try to comprehend it.
Okay, but you could imagine that
Yeah.
a word is made of letters and it's the
Yeah.
same process.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can read a sentence at a time, let's say.
Yeah, I look at the shape of the general line.
So
And so that's why handwriting and fancy, like handwriting, or when it gets too fancy in the scroll or script, that's why I can't read it. It's not the right shape anymore.
what do you mean by the shape of the line? Like, if you ran across a sentence you've never seen before, I assume you'd still be able to read it.
There's the A at the front, then there's like a T, and then there's an N, and so that's tension. And then the next word with that has a P and an E, so that's attention, please. But what could be written there, and this happens to me, could be action provides.
Oh, so that's why. Okay.
And so sometimes even when I look at a word the first time, like in individual words, when I look at them, I read about 3 different points of them or the general shape. So if there's like L's in them, I might look at that and see there's an A and 2 L's, and then it's like illusion. Why is that? This doesn't make sense, and that's actually attention. And so names are really weird because I'm not used to them, and so I guess names off other names I know.
So I've noticed something with people, not many people, but I have noticed people who, if you say something to them unexpected, like a sentence they're not expecting,
Yeah.
they don't hear you the first time. But if you say to them something that they would deduce, they hear you. And so I think that talking goes through a similar process where you actually are predicting the entire sentence as you hear each sound.
Probably.
And what happens is these people rely, I guess, on a more fragile prediction system, maybe, or they're worse at predicting, or they don't do the prediction. No, they would have to be doing the prediction because otherwise they just listen, you think. And so if something deviates from the prediction, it's just discarded. And so I like, maybe this is a better example. When I sing with a choir, I barely need to know the song because the first sound of whatever, like if people are about to go like, whoa, then I'm like, okay, I know what that word's going to be because there's only so many words used in singing in the first place.
Yeah, so a song came out for Cyberpunk, and it's an incredibly popular song, so I Want to Stay at Your House, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
And I didn't entirely understand the lyrics the first time I listened to it, and I actually made up what the lyrics were in my head.
Yeah.
And it was such an amazing song. I loved the lyrics. It was so good. Then I read the lyrics just because, like, I don't quite understand. I read the lyrics. Biggest mistake I ever made with that song. Because it's still a good song, but it's nowhere near as amazing as the song I thought it was, and I can't remember the song that I thought it was.
Yeah, that's another thing is...
And so my interpretation of the song, like, I want that song back. I want the song to be written the way I thought it was.
Yeah, a lot of people, the lyrics of the song are everyone has an experience with mishearing the lyrics of a song and just sort of, that's how it is. That's how I think it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the Green Needle... what is it? There's an audio illusion where it's a sound phrase and it sounds like 2 different words depending on how many syllables you interpret. If you think there's 2 syllables, it sounds like 1 word.
Isn't that the thing that's like there's over 20 different combinations that people have heard from it?
Maybe. I wouldn't doubt it because it's not actually any words at all. I think it's just like static basically.
Yeah.
It's like a bit sound. It's like...
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, it's saying green needle. But then if you listen to it differently, it's like firestorm.
Yeah.
It's like those are two completely different sentences, but if you're listening for the syllables, not for the letters or anything.
Yeah, I would not be able to survive speaking Mandarin.
But the so with the sentence, so with your reading, it sounds like a similar mechanism where you're going.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
It's pattern recognition.
You're doing an abrupt. So if there was a sentence, not a unique sentence, but a sentence that used words in an unusual way, then that would trip you up theoretically.
Yes. Yeah, so know that whole thing where it's like you read this wrong and like they put together? I catch on to those very fast because I go along so the shape is wrong.
Right.
They have all like those words missing or different parts, but it's like your brain automatically fixes it.
Right.
Mine doesn't because it goes, what on earth is this?
Like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where you
Yeah, I catch on to those a little bit quicker.
substitute those. So it's almost like you're playing Age of Wonders, right?
Yeah.
There's your micro, where you're luring your boar. You're using the town center to
Age of Empires.
Age of Empires.
Yeah.
Using the town center to get that first little hit.
Yeah.
You're doing all the little stuff well.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean, if you can do that stuff flawlessly, that doesn't mean you're a good player.
I doubt he's bad at that.
Yeah, exactly. But it gives you an advantage over a lot of players.
Yeah.
And because it means that your start is really solid, so that if you make a bunch of mistakes later on, you still have that solid start to fall back on. But it doesn't mean you're the best player. And then there's the macro layer, where you have a good strategy. You plan to, you're like, okay, I'm going to do a castle rush, I'm going to do a boom, I'm going to, whatever it might be, right? So that is your sort of macro layer of, and that's where I think your reading is, in a way, let's say. You're in the macro layer of, I understand these sentence structures.
Yeah.
But then there's there's two sort of meta layers. The one is, what do I think my opponent will do?
Yeah.
And what do I do about that? And then the other part of that is, I know I need to fight a fight, but I should only fight fights I win, but I don't know if I'll win or not.
Yeah.
And so you look at a composition of two units and the ability to say, I will win this fight or not.
Yeah.
And so that's on a sort of a higher level, right? And so you can be good at any combination of these things.
Yeah.
Like you could be a person who always knows who's going to win in a fight between two groups, which is a very important skill to have because you don't want to throw away your resources. But you might not know how to ever get it so that you have a better force than they do.
Yeah.
Or you could be someone that's very good at the macro part, so you have all these amazing strategies and counters.
Yeah. Well, with that micro fight as well, with that, like, you know who's going to win in the fight, and then you're playing against a player called Vivi with his archers, and he wins a fight he shouldn't because he does things to the archers that, like, no one else can do.
And then that's on the micro side again.
Yeah.
So you can look at writing. You can say the micro is letter to letter.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the writing a sentence letter by letter. Yeah. And so that's your spelling in a way. It's like, and then your macro is here's the structure. And so I view it on this.
That's actually how I do spelling as well. Like I say, that overall structure, the shape just has to look right.
So if you want to write, I can't think of stuff on the fly. What will you do when your wife leaves you? Okay. Yeah. So then you're like, okay, what will you, okay, so W, there's an L, there's a W, there's an L. So I'm just going to write WHALLWILL, so YUDO, and you're just sort of you're just getting you're getting the big picture down.
Yeah.
But you're not doing one advantage of writing by hand that is suggested for writers is that you can think faster than you can write.
Yeah.
I'm curious, but there's this risk of you. There's a risk when you type that you run out of things to think about, but you finish the sentence so quickly. Depending on how fast you type, obviously. But then there's the opposite risk of thoughts are fleeting, and so you can't get the thought out before it disappears.
Yeah.
And I wonder, do you think your experience of that would be different? I'm guessing it's hard to tell because it's probably still such a wide degree of variance. But because you're kind of painting the broad strokes to begin with almost, so that would almost make you think you're writing faster. Like you're writing the concepts faster. But
I think they kind of happen about at the same pace for me.
But then...
Like, I don't know what I'm writing until it's written. Like, I can have the grand plan of I want a fight scene, or I want to write something witty about socks, and then it just develops at the same time I'm writing. It's like I want something witty about socks, and it just shows up.
So, like, I'm almost looking at like the mechanism of the question is if you took 100 people and tried to get them to describe their writing process, would most people be stuck on a micro, a macro, or a meta? Or, I guess the meta in the writing example would be the thought itself, maybe.
Yeah.
Like what you want to write about. People that have all these ideas and they can't write them down, maybe.
Well, apparently there'd be a lot of variation with all these different brain cells.
Yeah, but I wonder, would the average person be able to mode switch? Like, could the average person say, okay, I want you to focus on your spelling. It's like, okay, letter by letter, boom, 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 boom. And then, okay, just get the idea out. And it's like,
Yeah.
and
I think people can mode switch. It's just, if you do the letter by letter, like, it gets a lot boringer for me. And I no longer want to write.
so, okay. So then on that note, this is, I mean, your writing is probably related to dyslexia in somehow, I assume. Like, we could assume probably. So do you think dyslexia is a fixation on the macro or an attentiveness thing where you're like, this is too boring to focus on the minutia?
I think it's an obsession with patterns.
Okay, so then does that mean you can do patterns but only patterns, or does that mean, like, in a very rough sense, obviously,
I can only speak for myself because apparently other people have different experiences, but it's like it is a fixation on patterns.
Yeah, right, but does that mean you can only do patterns, or does that mean anything else is uninteresting, let's say?
I think a large part of it is other things are interesting, and you're better at doing things you're interested in.
So do you think you could just, like, point a gun at a dyslexic person's head and say, spell good?
No.
Because you could give them the motivation to, like, look at the minutia instead of the patterns.
No. Because their pattern recognition's also learned instead of whatever people do to learn to write or read, whatever that is, or just the memory.
Okay, but from the age of baby, right?
Yeah.
You, like, whenever they focus on the letter by letter, you inject them with heroin. And whenever they focus on, like, the and so there's a strong incentive for something that isn't a pattern. Do you think that dyslexia would be characterized more by only working in patterns? To a degree, obviously, it's not nothing's. Yeah. But like dyslexia, you're almost, I don't want to say trapped exactly, but you're restricted to a more pattern build.
Okay, it's worker placement.
Yeah.
So you have your worker placement board and you have your cubes, right?
Yeah.
And only 4 cubes can go into the attentive letter by letter.
Yeah.
And then pattern recognition, you can put 8 worker placements in the pattern recognition.
Right.
So you then, and you need each turn to write, let's say you need 6 cubes in the letter-to-letter attentiveness.
Yeah.
But your workers in the pattern recognition, you can sacrifice 4 of them, and they then produce a different resource, which is like a floating attentiveness.
Yeah.
And you can put those floating attentiveness on top of the fixation. Like, that might be a good way to describe it.
So you're given what?
And so I have to use my pattern recognition to complete that.
Right, or it would be
not as effective.
Yeah. Okay, so you think so? It's not that the lack of patterns is boring. It's that there isn't enough energy.
Yeah.
To step outside the pattern, except to a degree. Like you've got the four tokens you can use.
Yeah.
But you don't have 5 tokens or 6.
Yeah.
Yes. So it is more of a being restricted to patterns than.
Yeah.
What is
my small? I don't know how all the different Terraforma boards, like they have their different amounts of worker placements. Like
yeah.
My worker placement board's different. The dyslexic board is different.
That's what I was thinking of. The bowls of magic.
Yeah.
Where you sacrifice 2 tier 2 mana.
Yeah.
You send it backwards and you send the others forward.
Yeah.
That is like the best mechanic in any game ever.
Yeah, it's like that. It's that sort of idea, but like I have a Darkling. I have a Darkling placement,
yeah.
And then like most people are halflings or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So dyslexic people, based on a massive sample size
of 1,
are trapped in patterns more than or they have more power in patterns and less elsewhere than
Yeah.
your average Joe. So they're more like elves, because elves, they have all these rules that bind them.
Sure.
They like to make circles, fairy circles, and like walk widdershins, and so okay. So could a dyslexic? You've only got your 4 or 6 or whatever it was non-pattern tokens, right?
Yeah.
Which means if you want to move from A to B, if possible, you want to use your pattern tokens because you've got like 300 of these things, right? So could a dyslexic person compensate for dyslexia, save energy, by being like a weird OCD sort of elf person who like walks widdershins into buildings and like
I think some
and
people,
wears like checkered clothing.
I think some people probably do that. So I remember one of the parts of Wilson training, like pre-Wilson training, that they do, and it's probably partly because of the situations that I had, just everything of the various different trainers, is one of the things they want to do, especially at that point in time, that age, is like Moose is stupid. That's his whole thing.
Right.
Like
He's dumb, yeah.
Yeah, he's dumb. But if you think about Moose as a person, he's emotionally underdeveloped partly. Like he's got anger management issues, and he's really bad at reading, writing, and math. But he's incredibly strong. He's big, so that helps. But even then, there are people in the comics that are drawn as bigger than him, and he can pick them up and throw them like they're nothing. And he's amazing at sports. It doesn't matter the sport. Moose is amazing at the sport. But Moose is basically told he's dumb, and the system is he's dumb. And so he teams up a lot of the time with Dilton, who's brilliant, but rather physically inept.
Yeah.
And they make up for each other's a lot of things. But Dilton, a lot of the time, Dilton knows how to talk to Moose and explain things to him. And Moose can perform things beyond what people expect his intelligence to be if Dilton's helping him. So, but what I'm getting at here is Moose is being told he's dumb, and so he's like, oh, I'm the big dumb Moose. So in my early Wilson training and all that, one of the things they kept harping on is you're not stupid. You're not dumb. You have difficulties for these reasons, and there's a bunch of ways to overcome them. And so I was actually read several short stories about, some of them are like biographical, other kids are dyslexic, some are like embellished from people's childhoods. So they had a bunch of struggles, but here's all the things they're good at, and here's all the things they can do. And so like one case of this guy, he had amazing memory. Like they went out biking and he had to get back home and they were lost and he's the only guy with a bike to help them. And so they put him on the bike and he knew the way back home. So he was really good at finding his way home. And his room was like just filled with colors and it had like a whole bunch of animal stuff in it. And when someone in his room, they're surprised, like, your room is so beautiful. And it's like, this is just the room I have to operate in. And then he became their management of the bike club of the money. And he was really good with the numbers and the money, but he had like his other problems. And so it's like, this guy's really good at memory and math. And so when I was first with that, I was like, well, this guy's bullshit because I'm not super good at math. Because at the time, I wasn't good at math. And I have a weird memory. And there's like a whole bunch of stories they basically read you about, like people especially, like some dyslexic people are amazing at music. And so if we go back to the worker placement, so you have your acumen of the major thing is, so let's say you have a balance board. I don't think anyone has a balance board, but let's say a balance board is average. And you have your acumen of reading comprehension and writing, so reading and writing, of getting the numbers right, getting the letters right, so getting all that right. So then you shrink those things, so you don't have many points. And pattern recognition is maybe like a little bit bigger, but then somewhere else is like music is increased in size. However, usually what we're taught and how people are taught to do is you take tokens from the acumen of reading and writing and you put those into the music because that's how people know to do it. So you take those points and you put them into the music thing.
Right,
and
so
then you don't
focus on what you're good at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the person only's got like 4 of those tokens and they put those into their music section. And they have the potential to be amazing at music, but they're like, I can't use that. And then if you take their pattern recognition, obsession, and you put that into music instead, then they can be really good at music. And so for me with math, I was really bad at math. Math made no sense to me. And I basically had it drilled into my brain of basic patterns of math. And that's how I do math, is basic memorized patterns. And I remember I had a math class, we're doing a test. And I went up to the teacher, was like, I need help with this question. And she's like, okay, like this is a test, so are you not understanding like these concepts or anything? Because I can explain a few things to you, but you have to do the work yourself. Like, no, I've forgotten how to divide. How does division work? And she looked at me. It's like, I can't tell you the answer. It's like, no. How does the concept of division work? I don't understand division anymore. It doesn't make sense. And she just got confounded by that question and couldn't help me. And so I had to do multiplication to do division.
Yeah.
And like that's where a lot of my math fundamentals, because I'm quite good at math, but adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing is what I'm good at.
It'd be interesting. Shame you never did integration, I don't think. And it would be interesting to see, because integration is very different from arithmetic. It's very creative. It's not there's not memorization to work with, but there might be patterns.
Yeah.
There's not patterns that anyone's recognized.
Yeah.
So there's that. But well, there's not patterns we can write rules about, but that doesn't mean that there's not patterns humans can't recognize.
Yeah, well, I mean, I call it pattern recognition, but like, I don't like the letter 6.
Yeah.
Because 6 is a freeloader. It's a freeloader off 5.
Always knew it looked funny.
Well, no, like 5 is so beautiful, right?
I mean,
like multiplying by 5 is either a 0 or a 5, right?
yeah. Like 6 has some bangers though, like 12, 24. You don't,
Well, no,
you don't like those?
12 is 1 and 2. That's fine. 12 is 1 and 2.
6 times 5 is 30. Like
No,
you can do.
This is why it's.
But 6 is half of 12, right? And 12 divides into 2, 3, 4, and 6. That's like it's like this. The 6 and the 12 multiplication is the best.
But here's my problem with 12. So
you're going after my favorite number here. I'm a little defensive.
Okay, let me explain my opinion then. Of it. So 2 times 5, beautiful. It's 10. It's so simple.
It's quiche, right? It's for the lower class. It's too simple.
It's so simple. And then 6 comes along, and it's just, I'll just take that 2 and add it onto the 10. Oh, I've done so much work. And so 6 is a sneaky little bugger stealing 5's work. And then 7 is weird, because 7 has to work with 6. 7's really cool. 7 does a bunch of interesting stuff, but it's confusing and mysterious, and it has to come off of 6. And then 9 is great, because how 9 works is anything by 10, and then you subtract 9 from it. And that's how 9 works. And 9 has this beautiful pattern of it decreases by itself. You have 9 and then 18. And so it's 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So 9 is beautiful. And then 3 is fun because it fits in with 7, and it fits in quite well, but 3 in other kinds is kind of like weird. 3 is like the annoying little brother who's like on the bus, like, you got any games, but you love him anyways, and he can do some cool stuff.
So what you did there with the 5 and the 6 is actually kind of funny, because it's so 2 times 5 is 10.
Yeah.
And then 2 times 6 is 12, which is 2 more, so the 6 just took the 2 and put it on top.
Yeah.
And that's actually exactly what happened, because there is 6 is 5 plus 1. And so 2 times 6 is 2 times 5 plus 1, so it's 10 plus 2.
Yeah.
And so what you've said by saying it just took the 2 and stuck it on top is you're saying that it is 2 divided by 2 numbers bigger than 5, which is exactly what it is. That is just that is a fundamental truth.
And that's how I understand math.
Yeah.
And that's why I can multiply to divide. And it's the same thing with the alphabet, right? So you go through the alphabet, and E is sneaky. I don't know why, but E is sneaky. It's everywhere. It's in everything. It's got figures all over.
It looks like a 6.
It does look like a 6. It also looks like a 3, though. And 3s, though, like I said, 3, he's kind of annoying, but you don't mind him, and he can do some cool stuff.
E's my favorite letter.
I don't mind E's.
You can do a lot with an E.
Yeah. I don't mind E's. It's just like, he's sneaky. Sneaky's not bad, but E's sneaky.
He's got all the elegance of a curved C with the sharp bit like it.
And T's are great. You know why T's are great? You can put 2 of them together, and it's just 3 lines. And they just sit there. They're very solid. They're like a building. T's awesome. So is N. N, those nice straight lines. Whenever there's an N in the word, you know it's going to be a good word. Like, it's got foundations. I just realized the implication, but yes, N's make good words.
I realize the implications and I stand by.
I do. Contextually, maybe it's a bad word, but like diarrhea, okay, right?
Yeah.
Diarrhea. You don't want diarrhea.
Yeah, there's no N in it.
But you don't want diarrhea. But diarrhea is very French. I actually don't like
You know what
French
the problem
words.
with it is? Diarrhea without N.
But diarrhea is very French. It's like
Yeah.
too elvish. I prefer more dwarven words.
Well, Elvish is actually based on Celtic.
Yeah, but I'm saying like French and Elvish is like it's the same thing. To me.
No, they're very different.
Yeah, it's better. Anyways, it's too flowy. Ignore the connotations of the actual word.
Yeah.
But like I like good solid dwarven words. Like if a dwarf built that word, so it's like it got N in it, it's got H in it, it's got T in it,
So you like Anglo-Saxon words?
A in it. Yeah, it's solid. Like a U, I like a good U. Like a U can hold something up, and a V can hold something
Or
up.
Saxon words, I guess. Yeah.
You know, they've got good shapes. But then you get like L's are okay, but if you have a bunch of L's, E's, and S's, like that makes a nice slithery word, and it can be pretty and elegant. But I want my words to be big old blocks.
Right. So your Dwarvish words are Saxon words, and your Elvish words are French words.
Yeah.
Like actually,
Yeah.
you're recognizing a pattern in the English language there. Which
Yeah.
so if you read,
And I don't mind Elvish, but I prefer the dwarves. Like if I want to like come up with a name for a female character or a more fey man, then I'll be very Elvish name. I'll have E's, L's, and S's. But if I want like the strong, big jawed guy, like Bran, like that's a good name, Bran, and it's got like solid letters to it.
so have you read Roald Dahl much?
Not really.
You might like it because he purposely uses Saxon words to have a much more wholesome British feel to it.
Yeah.
And Orwell, he recommended highly that you use Saxon origin words as much as possible, and then you only use French words for like diplomacy and deception and that sort of thing.
Yeah, like Angel is very French, but actually no, Angel's interesting because it's very French, but it's also it's very Elvish, but it's also very Dwarvish.
Well, the G is pretty hard sounding there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about the sound. I'm talking about the shape. It's got the A and the L's and the I's in it. It doesn't have an I, but it does. But the E's. So it's got the L's and the E's in it. And A can go either way. A can be Dwarvish or Elvish. But then it's got the N and the G in it, and those shapes that sort of hold it down. So it's a very nice mix.
Yeah. So these are
Like when I come up with names, like the name has to sound nice, but also has to look nice to me, and it has to fit the character when I try to come up with a name for someone. So it's really hard for me to come up with names for things when I actually can't write it down because I do have trouble visualizing what it would look like with the writing.
It's fun. School it standardizes things and it explains a lot of these patterns because there's a reason for most of these patterns, right? And even the patterns that we don't know of a reason, there's probably still a reason behind them. And but it is almost a shame with the standardization that we make it. It's not anything I'd want to change really, but it is so just something to keep in mind, I guess, that there's.
Well, I think what our school did with the Wilson training, like allowing that.
There's the patterns are real and there's a magic to them. There's like you know these are Elvish and Dwarvish words, right? You could standardize that very easily. You could say, okay, here are Saxon words, here are Anglo words, here are French words, here are German words, that sort of thing. And
German words are kind of orcish.
and what these wild.
Too many O's, too many K's, too many R's. That gives you an orc word.
One of these connected thoughts. They're
Biting. Yeah.
their intuition.
Yeah.
Their intuition of a pattern that we have. Well, I guess that my what I'm talking about is the scientific method where we take the beauty of intuition and we standardize it so that other people are privy to it. Because everyone has intuitions, but everyone's intuitions are about different things and are different. Yeah. And if we take them all and we formalize them so we can communicate with each other, and then we stack them all together, we basically started doing that in the Renaissance, and maybe we caught up with the internet, but maybe not quite still.
Yeah.
I think we're getting to I think language models are actually right now roughly us finally fully synthesizing our intuitions.
I should ask. I don't know if it'd be able to do it right, but I was like, think ChatGPT to try like give me dwarvish words.
Like Dwarvish sounding words.
Yeah.
You don't want Dwarvish words.
Yeah.
No, but you would say, can you give me some made up words that sound like they'd be Dwarvish? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'm just curious if it would give me. That's the thing.
It could probably do it for like Saxon words or something. You could find some way to do it, but it's very powerful because we haven't quite run out its course yet, but we said, what if we come up with a unified language to communicate with each other about intuition? And it's amazing, but the shame is that the
Do you find Zed's Egyptian?
no, the clearly not. They're Ethiopian. I mean,
So like Zeds are like Egyptian or Aztecian. Like they have the old world about them. Like the Nakutl, they've got like a Nakutl about them, or a pyramid, or a mason scepter.
But
A ziggurat.
that's something I think I'll get to that maybe. But the standardization has allowed for this like everything we've done,
or rebuilding the Tower of Babylon.
Well, no, it's like half the stuff we've done is just synthesizing intuition, because we've had brilliant knee surgeons like 200 years ago that could do stuff that modern ones still can't do. But what we've done is we've said, okay, what did you do exactly? And then we've tried to tease that out. Yeah. Like if we went to that, it's Palau, I think, Palau natives, somewhere around there maybe, the rice farmers. If we got them like, what are the key aspects of your religion? We might be able to tease out better rice farming and write it down.
Well, I heard something interesting about, it was the Yardscast, Duncan and Lewis went up in a hot air balloon. And in their behind-the-scenes things, they were talking with the guy who was running the balloon. And Lewis asked him, so how do you learn to fly balloons? It's like, what is he doing? The guy said, I'm not really sure it's something you can teach. It's something you sort of just learn to do. You get a feeling for it. And like apparently he was going along and he's like looking at chimney smoke to figure out where the wind was. And like he just pulled the thing at certain times, like lean his weight around to steer. It's like, I'm going to try to land in this landing field. So, how are you even aiming to steer a hot air balloon to land it? And he got pretty close to landing it there, and the weather just wasn't in his favor. I was like, he could do that.
That's what the scientific method has sort of done away with the mavericks, the geniuses in a way. Like we still have geniuses, but we're trying to pull the floor up, right? Yeah. And that's good in a lot of ways, but it does a nascent genius maverick type, let's say. I hope I'm using the word maverick right there, but they'll be like, E's are sneaky in school. No, what are you talking about? And E is the fifth letter of the alphabet or whatever it is.
Like, E's are rogues, if in D&D sense. E's a rogue. Like it pulls this little cloak. Threes do that too. They both pull their little shally cloak around them. They've got their dagger and they go sneaking about.
But I'm the teacher and I say, no, it's the fifth letter of the alphabet, right?
Yeah.
Because we're using the same language. But the problem is that, my theory about why brains can hold so much information is that we marry like a million concepts to one. And so this is like when I play music, right?
Yeah.
I get to a part of the song and I'm not like, this is the part of the song I hate. I'm like, this is the part of the song that like hates me.
Yeah.
Like this is the part of the song that makes me feel unwell. Not the sound, but the way I have to move my fingers because it's tricky. And that's not I don't think that's a real feeling exactly. I think it's just a way to parse down several layers of information into something I can express to other people.
In my biology class, it probably greatly amused the teacher because how class are set up. The teacher faces the students, and the students can't really see what each other is doing unless like you're sitting in their way. But in my biology class, the teacher really wanted us to like come up with memory techniques, like do whatever you need to do to memorize stuff. And so there was 3 different things I would do in that class. One of them is I made my stupid communist revolution, that little spinning top, during one of his lectures. And that was actually a memory technique for me, is building those things and playing around. Another thing I started doing, which luckily he allowed me to do and didn't distract too much, is during like memory or he like tell us stuff or like this is important, I would conduct the air in just patterns. And it's not that I remember the pattern like, ooh, this little S shape I make with my finger, that means the hemoglobin's in the blood cell. It's more of, there's motion now associated with memory. And so it's just need to be motion. And then during the test, it's like, oh, what does this mean? What was hemoglobin? What was hemoglobin? And I would wave my hand in a completely different pattern than what I did. It's like, oh yeah, that's what it is. And I'd write it down.
Yeah, I wonder.
And so I like did these movement things that they weren't even like, they were never consistent. And then the third thing I did is I would draw weapons. And like while I was talking, I would just draw weapons and I'd really focus on drawing them, like swords and guns and stuff, like sci-fi stuff. I'd really focus on that. And my notes would be written all around those things. So I'd have these drawings. and my notes would be going along, and then there'd be like a sword in the way, and so the notes had to write around the sword, and then I'd be doing the test, and it's just like I would memorize things better because of those drawings.
I think the problem with intuition is that it can't be taught. It has to be cultivated.
Yeah.
And cultivation's a lot harder.
Yeah.
And
I think that's what that teacher was trying to do, is cultivate. He's
Yeah.
like, find a way for yourself to cultivate it. And what he would do is he would give you like half a dozen different cultivation techniques. It's not so
memorization techniques.
Yeah, it's like not so much that this thing would work for you, but it's like, here's 6 different explorations. So you sort of know how they're made now. You've tried all of them, so go ahead and try to make a few of your own, and you sort of know them better.
Almost need a tinge of mysticism in there somewhere, just to...
Well, I think he achieved that tinge of mysticism with his note card trick, because you know the teacher I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Where the mysticism with that note card trick was really, you can write a note card for this class, and you've heard things about him, like he tears the note card in half, or he takes it away from you, but you wrote down the note card anyways, and so you have it memorized. And for us, we didn't know what to expect, and he swapped them on us, and so some poor person got my note card, and I got like the most amazing note card ever. Or another thing he did is, he said this test is going to be open book. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And then it was an incredibly hard test because it was open book, so there was obscure things in there. And so we had to study that book to know where the obscure things were, or we had to know them through our memory techniques he taught.
Yeah, we found...
And so it was always like you're reaching into a closet and you didn't know what you're going to pull out with him.
That is kind of what's happened. Like we talked about this last episode, I think, with the Flynn effect, where as we offload more and more of our minds onto robots and AI, sort of, we learn new ways of organizing things. Like they did a study with... I think it was millennials compared to boomers, possibly, with memory tests. And they found that the boomers had much better memories of facts than the millennials. However, the millennials, given a storage system, like a file folder system type thing, could memorize and extract information much better than the boomers. Like they could be like, okay, I have no idea what the answer to this is, but it's right in this file here because I remember putting it in here, and bam, there it is. Whereas the boomers are like, I got a stack of paper in front of me. What am I supposed to do? Yeah. Like that's an extreme on both ends, right? But that they found that the younger generation was more able to store and retrieve information in an organized manner, but not directly hold the information at hand. And that's because we have so many information storage devices now. We've got writing and computers and all sorts of stuff. And it isn't with like large language models. They become better and better at, let's say, they replace search engines to the point where their information is perfect. You just ask it any known fact that humans have discovered, it'll give you the answer, right? Any math question it can answer. Any history question it can answer. You can ask it to compare and contrast two things, it can answer it. And the interesting thing here is that the human brain has so far never been surpassed. Like it has never... Like you could say, look, you're writing stuff down. You're Plato, right? You know, you're Socrates. You're like, you're writing stuff down. You're getting lazy. It's like, no, the human brain got better at learning stuff to write down. And then it's like, okay, well, now that you have things learning for you, now you're going to get lazy. It's like, no, what's the next step here? What does the human brain do to surpass the machine now?
I got really sad this morning because I was trying to look up a comic. And it's like a comic I read when I was younger. I just wanted to look it up.
Can you restate that clearer?
Yes, I can.
I'm not sure if I can, but I'm not the one talking.
Yeah. So I wanted to look up a comic.
Yes.
I couldn't remember its name, but I remembered concepts from it. And I was going to the search bar to try to find it. And I was thinking about, because I couldn't find it, I was thinking, if this was 6 years ago, I would have been able to find it. And it's because the search function of Google has been lobotomized.
Well, it's sort of.
There's also way more information in there now.
There's also people trying to abuse the system and get themselves to the top. There's a lot of factors going into it.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors, but
But I think one of the main problems is Google is trying to push news and informative sites.
Yeah.
Which doesn't help when it's an obscure thing.
I was getting random wikis. I wasn't looking for wikis. I was looking for the very specific thing. And it did make me sad, though, because I was like, man, this search engine used to actually be, like, just Google it. Like, that used to be a statement. Just Google it, and it'd work. I don't think it's as applicable as it was of Google it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
It's
was
like sometimes I actually find it better to search YouTube than to search Google. But I'm really one of the things that annoys me about YouTube is I'll search something and it's like, all right, here's 10 videos about what you want. Great. Now here's some unrelated videos. Now here's videos you'd like to watch. Like, no, get rid of those lists. Give me a list 50 long of what I searched for. Please, I don't care about those other things.
yeah, I have an extension that it's called YouTube Unhooker, I think, and
Okay.
it gets rid of a lot of that stuff to the best of its ability.
Yeah. But like YouTube, I used to be able like I could have searched Minecraft Dark Matter mod, and I would have gotten 20 results of Dark Matter. Now I'll get 5 results of Dark Matter, then I'll get someone playing different mods on YouTube, then I'll get someone playing Minecraft, then I'll get something about Dark Matter.
Another problem is you used to I don't know when this happened. Like it's been happening for a while, but there seemed to be a major tipping point about like 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
You would search something online, and you would see, oh, here's let's say you're looking up the Dark Matter mod, right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, here's Reddit questions about it. Here's the Feed the Beast server. Here's Planet Minecraft. Here's CurseForge. Here's the modding subforum. Here's the Yogscast playthrough on YouTube of Dark Matter mod, let's say.
Yeah.
Now you type this in, and you get Twitch, who owns CurseForge now,
Yeah.
and you get YouTube, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Everything's become homogenized to or incorporated into like
Yeah.
5 organizations. You've got like Google, Amazon, Facebook.
Oh, that's Amazon.
Yeah, that's 3 really.
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia, I guess, yeah. Well, Wikipedia is kind of a funny one because it's one of the few places you can still go to find a diverse collection of sources, but the Wikipedia itself has been infected by ideologues.
And then whatever it's like Heroes Wiki, Wikidot, whatever it's called, that evil website.
I don't know that one.
So it uses Wikipedia's technology, but it's basically
Oh.
like you want to look up something about Sauron, and you end up on their site and the information's wrong, and there's like battles between the fandom, and if you use it on phone, half your phone gets taken over by adverts, and it's like you're always trying to scroll, and you only get like half your phone available to actually use it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Like I want an extension that actually just eliminates that from showing up in search results.
Pinterest as well. Pinterest is the image
Yeah.
version of that.
Yeah.
It's like it has a page on everything, but it's useless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like get rid of Pinterest, get rid of that wiki thing, just destroy it.
You know what's fun with Wikipedia? You go to
Because
the
I like Wikipedia, but I don't like Wiki. Wikidot.
so if you go to Wikipedia and you go to the discussion page
Yeah.
or the talk page, whatever it's called, the edit history,
Yeah.
you get some really fascinating stuff in there. Like,
Yeah.
for example, I was looking up the Young Turks,
Yeah.
like the Turkish revolution against the Ottoman Empire,
Yeah.
and I was because I wanted to find information on the Armenian genocide, and I couldn't find it. I was like looking through the page, I couldn't find it. I was like, weird. I went to the edit history, and there was it shows you how many characters were edited, and it shows the justification.
Yeah.
And so the person said, "Oh, corrected a spelling error. Changed Armenian genocide to Armenian relocation. Deleted like 30,000 words." And it was like, and then you see the next person, and they're like, reverted back to.
I don't think so,
Well,
Buster.
The next editor was like, reverted back to this. And then the next person's like, corrected error, deleted, changed Armenian genocide to Armenian location. And you can do this everywhere.
Yeah.
Like any mildly contentious thing.
Yeah.
I went to, like even if, XKCD has a comic about this actually. You go to find a small town that you know a little bit about, go to their discussion page, and it's just like the most meticulous, like, should we include this event that happened in 1967 where old man Barnaby fell on a horse and it farted really loud? It's like, that is a notable feature, but it might not be notable enough for Wikipedia, so we'll just...
We'll leave it there.
Ciao, losers!